Other in the cloud. So here we are. I'm Linda Lambert, and I am with, I don't know, do you prefer to be Kenneth or Ken?
Just Kenneth's fine, yeah.
Okay, so I'm with Ken Meyer, who submitted a piece of fiction with a really interesting name to Spring and All, the anthology that was written and edited by Red Wheelbarrow Writers and published in 2023 by Sidekick Press. Like many authors in this publication, he spent time abroad, quite a lot of it. And in this case, in government service in parts of the Muslim world, China, and Europe. So now I'm going to tell you the name of his piece and probably mispronounce it, some of it. Staff Luncheon at the Consul's Resident, comma, Peshawar. Did I say that right? I'm sure I've heard it on the news.
Well, I think maybe it's supposed to be Peshawar, but it depends which dialect you're speaking. Peshawar is also okay. Yeah, the consul's residence.
The Consul's Residence. So that's a fascinating title. I was immediately drawn to it. And it's an obvious suggestion to me to wonder about the content. I've read it, but I wanted to know how much is personal, how much is imagination. How did you happen to write that piece of fiction?
Okay, thank you, Linda, and thank you to everybody who put this collection together. This particular story, I think for many people who have lived or worked overseas, I mean, you probably have a drawer full of these anecdotes and scraps of paper and, things written on a napkin and who knows what. I mean, all kinds of things, snippets, things written on the back of photographs or whatever. Met this guy, don't know who he is. He says he's going into the Himalayas or something. So, I had a lot of material to draw on there. And I can say in this piece, I mean, I'm usually not a memoir person, but everything in there is true. The only thing that I kind of tampered with is I put two of the characters together and made it one character because in this post, I mean, I was in Pakistan. I spent several years there. There was somebody at one of these posts that was always saying, "We're not leaving." The meaning being, no matter how messed up it gets, no, we're not leaving. No,
Oh
we're
yeah.
staying here. So I put, I guess you could say my character says that, but it's actually an amalgamation of two characters together. So
Okay. And how did the piece flow?
well, actually, this piece, I think I would have to admit, and with no hard feelings, that it changed greatly as we
Sure,
were
it's
approaching.
fiction.
Yeah, it changed greatly as we approached the publication process because, Marion said, well, this is really interesting, but, it doesn't seem to conform in some ways to the theme. And I'm not sure if it really has an ending. So, we kind of hashed that over. And, as I said, a lot of these things come out of anecdotes of real life. And so I thought, oh, well, that's easy, because we can adjust it to any theme because again, all writers have this stuff in their drawers. And, if you say to me, okay, Ken, happy springtime. Okay, here it is. Happy springtime. If you say to me, Ken, dog got lost. He was killed by serial murder or something. Okay, here it is. Yes, I was thinking about that. And, so it was easy to change it. And, it helps to have an editor who is also thoughtful and maybe appreciative of what you're trying to do and the atmosphere in that piece. So, and personally, I'm happy to work with any editing. Well, in fact, I would say in self-defense, you probably should because, if you just let them do what they want, who knows what might happen, but so it's in everybody's interest that the writer cooperate with the editor.
I've felt for a long time that old phrase, it takes a village, is really true in writing because I used to not really give my pieces to others. I just thought when I'd done my best, they were finished. Well, it's not true because other people, I mean, some pieces are better than others, obviously, but it can really benefit from other opinions. In fact, are you in a writers group then?
Um, Yeah, I'm one of the coordinators for the Village Books fiction group, but I still go
Oh,
to some of the other groups around town too.
yeah. You've said that you've enjoyed telling story in your bio. You said you enjoyed telling stories since you were young. So give me some examples of that. What did you tell stories about? Why were you such an imaginative kid?
Yeah, that's a great question, but I think I guess Abraham Maslow talks about self-actualization, and some people have more curiosity than others, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, from an early age, I was always interested in history and stuff, and I think my mother was very big on the classics and especially ancient history. So, I would write little stories about Roman soldiers or something, and,
Uh,
totally awful stuff, of course. But anyway, I mean, it showed, I guess, that at an early age, yeah, I just like stories. And of course, I liked reading too. So, I mean, big reader. Writers are usually big readers too, I would say. And, maybe there are some exceptions, but I think that's usually true.
yeah, I think that's usually too. Where did you grow up?
I grew up mostly near New York City, but I also had a few very important years in California, and we drove across country. And
Hmm.
so I like to say to friends, I'm aggressive in a laid back way. So I combine both coasts. I'm kind of the California easygoing, and I can also compete and be nasty if I have to, but in a laid back way. So,
That's a very good combination, I think.
yeah, that's how I try to aim for that. But anyway, so yeah, I grew up mostly in the New York City area, and what I usually tell friends and acquaintances who haven't lived there, I mean, if you grow up near New York City or in New York City, I mean, you have to learn how to compete, because if you don't, I mean, you're dead as a doornail. I mean, you have to find some way to stand out. You have to be good at something. I don't know what, beating people up, or, scientific equations, or writing, languages, something, It's a very,
Oh,
yeah.
that makes me wonder how it was you got into foreign service, government service.
Okay, well, that's a good question, and like many teenagers, my parents were saying, "Oh well, he reads all this philosophy and stuff, and he likes to write stories, but what's he gonna do?" And of course, I worried about that too. And just by chance, I mean, I was always interested in non-Western cultures, especially India, China, uh, the Eastern Mediterranean, maybe. And just by chance, I went overseas and I was studying, and I had a semester in Egypt. And
Hmm.
after that, I was traveling around, and I met all these people in the embassies working there, DOD, State Department, whatever the heck, spooky times. And I said, well, they need somebody like me. Because, I mean, even at that age, I had already studied a couple of languages and stuff. And you obviously had to be a good traveler and somebody who's kind of calm-headed. And so I thought, oh, well, this is something I could do. So then in college and also graduate school, I applied to all these departments and everything, and eventually got in there. And what I found, kind of at an early age, 19 or 20, was that if you do something a little unusual, like study the Middle East or something, you will stand out. And in fact, that's one thing I usually tell young people is, if you want to have a foot ahead, you might say, or an edge over some of your competition, do something nobody else can do. I'm the only one who can do this kind of computer language, or, I invented Twitter or something, or, oh, well, okay, we all can't invent Twitter. I mean, but, do something nobody can do or nobody wants to do, and then you'll always have a place. So that's what I found.
Where did you go to school? Sounds like you probably had an interesting education.
I went to the very plebeian and nothing unusual State University of New York at Stony Brook. But while I was there, I mean, I think this was kind of the definitive thing. I mean, it was usually, sort of kind of bright kids from the city mostly. And,
Hmm.
um, but of course, it was a state school, it was almost free. But while I was there, I went to Egypt for a semester. I studied Chinese for 3.5 years, Sanskrit, I studied some Arabic in Egypt, so I already had this sort of, broad-based set of interests, and those were a little unusual, I think. But so that kind of gave me, you might say, opportunities. I think it gave me opportunities.
Uh, I don't like you downplaying state universities because I graduated from San Francisco State long
Oh
ago.
yeah, a great school.
And it was a great school. I mean, I also went to USC for a master's, but I just think anywhere you go, well, obviously it's not all the same, but if you're a curious person, you take good classes, you get good professors, you can learn enough to scoot yourself out into the world and find your place. And it looks like you did that.
Well, yeah, and I think, also I want to say something that usually you wouldn't hear from somebody, but chance also plays a big role in it. And I think the ability to take hold of an opportunity, because I'll just tell this anecdote very quickly. When I went to the state university, I was very interested in Zen Buddhism. So I went to the guidance counselor or something and said, okay, I'd really like to take Japanese, let's do some Japanese. And the guidance counselor said, oh, that professor's on leave this year, why don't you just try some Chinese? And so, okay, 40 years later, I'm still reading Chinese. It gave me a whole career.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so that's an example of, fate taking a step into your life there.
Yeah, well, that was a good step into your life, wasn't it? But who knows if you had studied Japanese, where you might have ended up. It could have been just as good, but in
Yeah.
this case, it really paid off very well. We're talking lots about where you've lived and your education and government and so on, but back to writing,
Yeah.
you probably have been writing forever anyway, because you had an early interest in it, but it seems like now, perhaps post-career, you're able to really get into it. So tell me a little bit more about what kind of writing you're doing and where you do it and what's compelling you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I did write all along while I was also in the government too, but some years more than others. And when I arrived here in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, I definitely had more time for various projects. And I always, everywhere I was, I tried to find a writers group. And I've been in
Hmm,
several of them over the years,
hmm.
one in Beijing, one in Tunisia, a couple of others. And some of them were better than others, but those are a big help. I usually write in the morning for a couple hours, and sometimes I have also done like a writing hour with other student friends or friends, and that's usually helpful. I mean, I think you do need a routine, and I try and make it pretty predictable because I'm married. My wife and I, we usually do things in the afternoon and go for a walk and everything. So in the morning I'm writing, or maybe sometimes late at night if some, idea
Mm-hmm.
explodes in my head or something. But yeah, I do write pretty regularly, and I'm not afraid to change it. I'm open to suggestions. Um, So I think, yeah, you have to be pretty flexible. I think, one thing I've seen in some of the writers groups, I've seen some of the other writers say, "I'm not changing anything. What I wrote is perfect. It's great the way it is." But is it really? I mean, if the readers aren't happy with it, I mean, this is your test group here. These 10 or 20 people. I mean, if 5 or 8 of them say, that doesn't work for me, maybe there's something wrong, or one of the most damning things I've heard in these writers groups is, I don't understand why a character would do that. That doesn't seem real to me. Okay, whoa. Alarms should go off, red flags waving. I mean, that's a bad sign.
Yes.
The reader has to believe in what you write and say, oh, yeah, this seems like a real person. I could see somebody doing that. Maybe I could do that. Or, I would react in this way too. Then you have a reader.
I think it's a real doomsday approach to think that your writing is perfect as it is, or as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
And there comes a point when you just are tired of it. So maybe that's the time to leave it, or maybe it's the time to just put it away and then come back to it another time and see what fresh eyes are. But I really believe in paying attention to what others think of of your writing. And of course, some people you're just not going to jive with. So you usually
Yeah.
find out who those people are.
Sure, and of course, does what you wrote have an audience? That's kind of another way to look at it. I mean, it might not have an audience in today's age. Maybe you could take a Nietzschean point of view and say, "Oh, well, in 100 years they'll read it," but that's more like a piece of philosophy or something. But I mean, most of us want to be read, so I
We
mean,
do.
yeah.
Are you
Oh,
doing mostly fiction, or do you experiment with other genres?
I do like fiction. I mean, I have a particular fondness for historical fiction, like Mary Renault, Gore Vidal, Bernard Cornwell,
Mhm.
especially Mary Renault, though. And I I do delight in historical fiction, and I feel that all of these people actually are the same as we are today, but they have to deal with different conventions, and perhaps they're not as free to act in some ways as we might be today. Like when you read Mary Renault's work, The Persian Boy, this is a very different society. I mean, there's some odd stuff happening there, but the human imperative for love and to have companionship is still there. So, I mean, it's all still the same material, but I do like historical fiction. So, but I set things, I mean, as this story in the anthology is in the present time too. So,
Well, I think historical fiction gives you a chance and really makes you study the era so that you get it right, so nothing clashes. But as you say, those universal emotions can still be a part of any age, really. It's just that the trappings are different and the language is probably different. And
yeah.
it's a real challenge to recreate a former universe, but I think it's a really interesting thing to do. And I felt put back your description. One thing I liked your piece in this anthology was that there were a lot of words that were unusual to me, and I always like to look up unusual words like buzkashi
Oh,
and
yeah.
um,
Right.
one thing, and finding out what exactly that was, those equestrian teams trying to get a goat head. When
That's
I
right.
when I'm encouraged to find out something more, I really like that, even though it may not be described in the work. And this is kind of a funny coincidence, but I came across the word merg, M-U-R-G-H,
Yeah.
Dory Merg, and I thought,
Yeah.
I
Chicken.
know that word because we had been playing Scrabble and I composed that word, but I had to look up what it meant. So it
Yeah.
was like, oh, thank you, Scrabble, for letting me know what Ken was writing about.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very common dish over there. Yeah, tandoori murg. Yeah, the red chicken.
Yeah. You had and you had some nice descriptions. I don't know this is one of your better ones, but I had a sense of what this place looked like when you referred to the unfinished Baghdad Belt Road. I don't know what a belt road is, but I still had a sense of what it was.
Oh, yeah, just a highway going around the city. Yeah.
Kind of like the Washington
Yeah,
Beltway.
exactly like the Washington Beltway. But
Okay.
in fact, that one, at the time I was there, it was unfinished. So you could only go three-quarters of the way around. So if you were going 120 miles an hour, you had to remember to stop after 15 miles. Otherwise, you go flying off the, raised parkway. And
Uh, that's pretty crazy.
yeah, yeah.
I let's see, what was I going to say? Well, I liked your characters. I made a list of your characters. You had some really interesting people in there. I couldn't really tell who was you and who wasn't, but you really knew who those characters were, probably based on your experience, and also they probably grew in different ways as you wrote about them.
Yeah, sure. And as Marion pointed out, I mean, in this piece, it's a very short piece, but I mean, it had many different characters in it. Did it need to have them there? No, but I mean, we're just sort of giving you a feeling of what this place was like and the kind of personalities who would work there. Some of them who maybe got in trouble, or some of them they hoped they would make more overtime, make more money. A lot of them were ex-military types. I mean, it's a very unusual crowd of people. Yeah.
I had a feeling that those characters could spill into other chapters and other stories. I don't know if this is going to be a longer work or not, but I think it certainly could be.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, this was sort of, yeah, just a one-off, but I mean, I do have several other stories about Pakistan, yeah. But in some of them, the characters have changed names, and you might find some of the same personalities repeating. But I mean, yeah, certainly there's a whole book worth of stories there. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be interested in reading what else you put out, and I'll pay attention when I pay attention anyway at Red Wheelbarrow when I can get there to the happy hour. So
Oh, sure.
I will see you there. But to close out our interview, do you have 50 or 60 words that you think are well crafted that you'd like to read?
Okay, yes, I do. All right, yeah, I cut out two pieces, and I wasn't sure which one I would pick because I like surprises. Oh, let's see. Okay, let's do this one.
Okay, let's do that one.
Or no, we could put it another way. You want the poetry part or the prose part?
Oh boy. I want the one where you think the best language is written. What is
Oh,
your
okay.
best writing?
Okay, that's kind of hard to judge, but anyway, all right, let's go to
Because
this.
it's all so fabulous? Is that why it's hard to choose?
No, no, it's just because I think you're too close, and I think a lot of writers are not really good judges of, oh, this is the best thing I wrote. Is it? No, I don't think so. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I've been in one of these writers groups and somebody says, oh boy, this is the best thing I've done. And no,
No,
it's
it's not.
not. Maybe you feel strongly about it because you're describing, I don't know, your ex-wife or something, or you didn't get promoted and you're mad about it. That doesn't mean it's the best thing you've done. I mean, it just means you have strong feelings about it. But okay, all right, I'll
Give it a
read 50
try.
words. Yeah. So, two colleagues still discuss the business of somebody's guard shooting another person, but Granger had had enough of that topic. At this post, with tribal feuds going on nearby, war in Afghanistan, and hostiles threatening the consulate on a monthly basis, the bar of threatening event was set high. Guards doing something and running off didn't count as hair raising. Unless a missile came flying in through the administration building window, everything was normal. So that's it.
I like that. I think that's got good description in it.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'm pleased to be in the anthology, and whoever voted for it, I'm not sure exactly how they voted, who would get into it, but whoever voted for these pieces, thank you.
I was not part of the editorial committee, but I know there were 4 or 5 editors who reviewed all the manuscripts, and they pretty much all had to agree on what would be included. And here's what the book looks like.
Yeah,
And
looks great.
it's very exciting. You're on page 169 to 177, and I know it's going to come out soon. This just happens to be an advanced copy so that I could show it off in the interview. So
Great.
thanks for talking with me, and I will see you at Red Wheelbarrow Happy Hour next time, I hope. And
Okay.
we'll speak again.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.